So it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Tamika Brim-Burnell. She's the Freight Program Delivery Team Leader in the Office of Operations, Office of Freight Management and Operations for the Federal Highway Administration. Her team does a lot of things, and she's the lead on it. They do the National Highway Freight Program, the State Freight Plans, Freight Advisory Committee, the Build Tiger Grant Program, the Infrastructure for Building America Grant Program, and research activities related to urban freight mobility. Ms. Burnell has a very impressive background. She has a Bachelor in Science degree in Mathematics from Bowie State University, a Civil Engineering degree from Southern University, a Master of Science in Mathematics from Southern University, and a Master of Science in Logistics from Michigan State University. So we're very pleased to welcome Ms. Brim-Burnell, and we're looking forward to your keynote speech. Thank you.
Thank you. I always forget to take myself off of mute, so excuse me. I'm sure a lot of us do these days. First of all, good afternoon. Thank you for that great introduction, and thank you for having me today. One of my hidden passions is I love students. So I love teaching, I love mentoring, and I love students. So this is a pleasure today. My first slide is, not about so much your degree or what you're doing now. I thought it was important to kind of set the stage of kind of who am I, right? Because this is the stage that you all are going into where you're trying to figure that out. You thought you were trying to figure that out when you graduated from high school. And now you're graduating from college soon. And you're probably again trying to figure out kind of who am I? And I made this slide because I wanted to show that you're a lot of different things all of the time. I mean, it pretty much never ends. I mean, on the personal side, you're a daughter, a son, your sister, or brother, your student, your friend, your mentee, mentor. Me is like so many other folks on the line today are teachers. You're a wife or a husband. You're eventually, one day you'll be a parent. But on the professional side, of course, I'm a mathematician, engineer, employee, co-worker. Pay attention to that word employee and co-worker. Those are very important words. Supply chain logistics, I'm a program manager or was. I'm a team leader. And then even on the professional side, a friend, a mentee, and a mentor come around again. And you're gonna see that as I kind of go through kind of my journey. So you see those underlined because they play a very key role in your professional growth. So very great introduction, talked about my education. My education is going to kind of walk us through my path to where I am today. And hopefully it's going to kind of help you start to discover what is your path that you want to go in the future in terms of grad school and beyond, whether you choose to do your PhD or whether you choose to go in the work world. My career started, of course, my interest in STEM started very young. I guess in middle school and elementary, I found out I loved math. And I was like, what do you do if you love math, right? Female, African-American, growing up in the city, what am I gonna do with math, right? So I had this blonde haired teacher that wore this big bun on her head. And she's like, oh, you can do a lot of math. She was so excited, it made me excited. And that's how I started learning about the whole mentoring thing, right? Just one person to take interest in you, which all of you all apparently have a lot of people interested in you, or you wouldn't be here today. They're mentoring you, and it only takes one, right? So continued on in math, pre-engineering high school. I ended up at Bowie State, not wanting to go far from home. I'm from the East Coast, Washington, D.C., grew up. And so I went to Bowie State to pursue my degree in math, knowing that I always wanted to pursue engineering, but I didn't want to go that far just yet, and I didn't want to go anywhere very big. So I went to Bowie State to pursue math. But one of my other passions is I learned to work, the importance of work at a very young age. So I worked in high school. I'm at a program that allows you to go to school your senior year half day, allowing you to work. So I worked in the federal government from like the age of 17. So I enjoyed working, so I didn't want to stop working. So I'm like, I know someone earlier asked a great question about deciding what do you want to do or balancing, or if you have different interests. And one of the things that I say is keep the different interests. It's important to know that you don't have to sacrifice one interest for the sake of another interest. So I continue to work. part-time, and I went to school full-time. I went to Bowie State and pursued my math degree, which was great because it led to other opportunities. You're thinking about grad school, so I want you to also continue to think about research. Research is going to play an important role in your career throughout your career, not just in graduate school, but when you start to work. If you choose to go into the work areas, the industry, you're always going to have to write. I heard the speaker panel talking about the importance of writing. It never goes away. No matter what you choose as a career, a part of your job is going to require you to write and manage other people who write. So it's not even knowing how to write, it's how to make sure that people you hire, people you're managing, are writing to the needs of the company, the industry, or if you're a professor, the university, writing to the needs of how they want the university and the subjects that the university chooses to research to grow. So I did my first research paper on mathematics, a numerical analysis topic. Dr. Lee, this young professor said, you know, you're actually really pretty decent in math. I think you should write a paper. And I was like, oh God, how do you write a paper about numbers, right? So I would say start very early. If you're a senior this year, if there's a small topic you want to explore, you're going into your senior year, definitely talk to your professors and see about writing a paper on a topic that you like. So writing starts very early. Also, what starts very early is the importance of getting your basics, whether it's in school or whether it's in industry. It is so important to have a strong foundation. Writing is part of the foundation, but also developing your basics in whatever your career choices are. I decided very early that I wanted to go into civil engineering. So that meant I needed to learn how to design, I needed to learn how to construct. I actually started my engineering where I was working on my math degree. I went out and got a job as a co-op, actually doing design and engineering, although I wasn't in engineering school. Someone talked about crossing the disciplines. If you're in a technical discipline, a lot of times you can cross into another professional area. So don't think that if I'm majoring in environmental engineering, I can't do civil. If I'm majoring in electrical, I can't do transportation, because a lot of them cross over, a lot of different professions cross over. So if you're still trying to figure out, I say take advantage of the co-op opportunities, the internship opportunities. It's just important to figure out what you don't want to do is what you do want to do. I found out very early, that's a picture of me in the summer working construction. That helped me figure out that I did not want to do construction for a living. I enjoyed it for that summer. It was wonderful. I helped rebuild the Baltimore-Washington Parkway. Learned a lot. I can tell somebody how to construct something, which is very important now, but I found out I didn't want to do it for a living. But on the other hand, some people do. My husband is still a design engineer. That's what he does for a living. He designs roads and bridges. So you have to figure out what your passion is. And the only way to do that a lot of times is taking on your research interests or getting out in the industry and trying different things out. So where did I go from there? I decided after graduating with my math degree, I definitely wanted to continue to pursue in civil engineering, even though I did not want to actually construct anything out in the sun anymore. I was fortunate. I actually got selected to attend Southern University. That's where I met Dr. Judy Perkins. The first summer I came in, I actually was through working, I was able to pay for my engineering degree. Once you get a science degree, a math degree or a science degree, most times it would only take you a year and a half to finish your engineering degree. However, while I was there, and I tell this story because I want you to take advantage of every opportunity you're given. While I was there, Southern University started to enter into a relationship with the Department of Transportation, the US Department of Transportation. They were doing a Dwight Eisenhower Transportation Fellows Program. I actually co-opted and worked in the summers for Federal Highway. One of my professors said, why don't you think about applying for the fellowship? Like I said, I'd already saved money to pay for my year and a half at Southern, but I said, sure, I'm here, why not? So it was a great opportunity because of this fellowship. I was able to then think about, okay, what do I want to do my master's in? The fellowship was for a master's, to study a master's degree. So I had to think about that. So I ended up doing my master's in mathematics since I had a bachelor's in mathematics. And someone asked a question earlier about combining topics. I actually was able to work with Dr. Perkins and other professors to actually combine my two passions, mathematics and civil engineering. So I actually worked on my thesis, my master's thesis, which dealt with the applications of numerical analysis using economic variables related to high-speed rail as a case study. So I was into trains at that time and high-speed rail. Like you all are young, I was into any problem no one hadn't solved yet, right? You can conquer the world. So I wanted to figure out how do I bring high-speed rail to untapped areas like Michigan. If you're familiar with Michigan, it's the car industry of the US. That's the hub, right? So of course, me being young, I want to go build high-speed rail. And where else? Michigan, right? So take on the world. But in terms of combining your interests, yes, it can be done. If you can write about it, if you can be passionate about it, you can convince the professor to support you in doing that. And you can convince someone to give you the money to follow your passion. So I did go on to do my master's at Southern along with my engineering degree, which only actually took 3 years of my life. So I ended up getting 2 additional degrees in 3 years. So where did I go for them? Again, working was important to me. I enjoyed work. At the time I thought, I did my master's, the logical step is to go get your PhD. That is what you do. But at the same time, I loved working. I was like, okay, if I go get my PhD, when am I gonna have a chance to really use the working skills that I've learned over the years? I did apply, and I say always apply, never limit your opportunities. And what I mean by that is, if you don't know what you want to do, apply for both roads. Apply for jobs and apply for education, and then make a decision. You don't have to make the decision before you apply. So when I decided to go to Michigan, the state of Michigan, I actually applied for a job and I applied to Georgia Tech's PhD program. I did get in Georgia Tech's PhD program and I did get a job. I decided to take the job. So I went to work for the Michigan Department of Transportation. Again, keep my mindset that was, I want to build something in Michigan that they currently don't do, right? I want to sell them high-speed rail. That was my passion. So I went on to Michigan, saying that a school would be there. When I got to Michigan, I actually did apply to Michigan State. I looked at Michigan State to do my PhD. And at that time, they really wanted me to focus on pure math, which was not my passion. As you can see by so far my discussion, I was really into applied math. So I decided to work for a while. I entered the engineering development program in Michigan Department of Transportation, which was great. One thing internship programs can give you is a look at everything that they do. That was important to me. I realized as an undergraduate, and even with my graduate degree, I still only knew about a slice of what the engineering profession had to offer. So it's very important to me to enter a development program. So Michigan Department of Transportation gave me opportunities to see a lot of different facets of civil engineering. So I worked in local services, which meant I worked with local agencies to help them decide how to build their roads, how to fund their roads, how to manage their roads. I actually worked in design, which is a core fundamental of some civil engineering. I believe that every civil engineer should know on some level about the design of the road. Traffic and safety is always important. We lose more people to car crashes than almost cancer. So we literally lose more people to car crashes than we lose to cancer. So safety, traffic safety is very important. So I worked there for a while in my rotation. And then I got to work in the area of my passion, and which was high-speed rail. So believe it or not, Michigan did have a high-speed rail department, and it was great. What did they make me do in my first rotation? I was loving high-speed rail, but never actually took a train across country. So my boss at that time said, the first thing you're gonna do is take a trip with me and we're gonna ride the train from Michigan to Chicago. So that was my first introduction to what they wanted to do. And at that time, Michigan and Chicago wanted to build a high-speed rail corridor to get people back and forth. So that was my other rotation. I loved working, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what Michigan DOT had to offer. So I became a transportation engineer, which that's what the transportation industry refers to as their civil engineers. I worked in traffic and safety. Like I said, I learned a lot of my rotational program about saving lives and the importance of building a road with safety in mind. And then again, I am a firm believer in make sure that your fundamentals are strong. I can't say how important it is. I know everyone wants to make a lot of money very quick, but I'm here to tell you that that is not the most important thing. It is very hard to go back down the corporate ladder. So if you rush to get to the top and you don't have a strong sense of your fundamentals, no one's really going to hire someone that's kind of reached the top of their career to come back down and do basic design or basic traffic and safety or basic anything. And I know people who are like that. I've mentored people like that who get to the top and figure out I can't now move further because I don't have a strong basic foundation. So I can't say that enough. Do not be in a rush to move up. Take your time and build a strong foundation and move up. So I chose to work in design, knowing design is a fundamental core of civil engineering. So I spent a couple of years doing that. Next, I decided to go back to Federal Highway. I worked as Federal Highway as a college student. I decided to go back. But one of the reasons why I decided to go back, and this is a little promotion for us, is because Federal Highway is a very large agency. It covers every state in the United States. It also covers some portions outside of the country, and you'll see later as well. So the partnerships in Federal Highway are very extensive. We're under the DOT, which means not only do you work with highway, you're constantly working with your partners in other mobile administrations, like air, like water, like rail. So you get a huge education every day. Not going to go through all these slides, but I want you to take notice that you get to do a lot of things at one time. I like that. Judy Perkins can, Dr. Person can attest to that. I get bored very easy. So I really wanted to be in an industry or organization or private industry where I got to reinvent myself every 5 years or every 2 or 3 years. So my first job was as a transportation planner and research engineer. Underline the word research. If you want to kind of know what your master's would do for you, what doing research in college would do for you, it will give you other opportunities in the corporate world. So not only was I able to do just hardcore planning and engineering, I also was right to help my boss with his research program as well. So I did a mix of planning, engineering, ITS. And somebody said something about how do I mix my passion of the environment? Yes, I worked in environmental policy. One other thing that I do that's not on here and I do every day, research again is important because I work with law every day. Working for the federal government, the way I help implement the transportation program actually comes from law from Congress. So additionally to knowing the engineering side, I, over the years, have been able to learn how the law works, how Congress works, how the political influence works, how do we get the money to build what we build, how do we get the money to keep people safe on the road. So that is another benefit to working with the federal government. So other opportunities, and you were like, wow, that's a lot of things to do. Well, that wasn't the only part of my job. Additional to my full-time job, which you saw on the screen, what I was responsible for, these made up some of my collateral duties. Those are other things you do as in your position. And whether you work for public or private industry, you have your job and then all those other things that you get to do because of those special interests that you took in grad school or that you had outside of your business life. So additional things is I've always been into trucks, freights. So I worked in size and weight, vehicle size and weight. And that's all about the trucks on the road, how heavy they are, how much they damage the roads, how to enforce that they're being safe on the roads. The National Corridor Planning and Development Program, always been interested in international travel, how goods travel over the border on the northern and the southern border. So I got to work a lot with that. The Technical Assistance Program, again, I talked about mentoring earlier. This is like a large scale mentoring. How do you help little agencies do the same things that a big DOT would do? So how do little communities get to build their roads and get the funding to build their roads? Data, I know that all of you all that are thinking about graduate school, you're civil engineers or environmental engineers or any type of engineers, you work a lot with data. There has to be data to support whatever you do. So I worked with our national database systems, functional class. Every road has a level that they're classified under. So you learn about that. And then for all of you all techies in the world, yes, technology and innovation is a part of civil engineering every day. So you build the roads and design the roads for the day, but you're always thinking about what does that next generational tool look like? And the reason why I bring up that is because, again, going back to research in graduate school, that is where you get your fundamentals for actually learning to research, build on technologies, develop innovative programs for your customers. And whether you're in public or private industry, again, those skills will become useful. School never ends. So whether you do graduate school right after undergraduate today, like I did, or you choose to do it later, which I also did, it always comes back. How do you sharpen the saw? How do you increase your skill sets? Well, one of the ways you increase your skill sets is going to graduate school, learning to research, learning from others that mentor you in grad school. You learn a lot of skills from work, but you also learn a lot of skills from your professors and those who are constantly inundating themselves in the research world. So one of the reasons why I decided to go back to grad school again is because as a professional, I was constantly working in the freight area. So civil engineer was crossing over in the freight world constantly. So at one time, we always talked about trucks. We made the roads wide enough to accommodate trucks. But it was like in the early 2000s when the federal government really started to say, wait a minute, we need to care more about just the trucks being able to move in a lane. What is the impact on our infrastructure in terms of why are we starting to get so many more trucks? So it became about logistics. What is driving the amount of trucks on the road? And how is that impacting our funding, our roads, the materials on our roads, our economy? You know, so now someone talked about, do things cross over? Yeah. So now, not only are we talking about civil engineering and we're talking about innovation and we're talking about safety, but now we're also talking about, wow, now let's get even deeper into how transportation is affecting our economy. Everything at the store, on the shelves, you know, how are you getting your books for school? How are you getting your everyday supplies, your food at the grocery store? That became a big issue in the early 2000s. You know, how are we doing that? What is the role that civil engineers and transportation play? Because that was primarily a private sector issue. The government, we build the roads, people use the roads, we cared about getting more money to build them. We hadn't really crossed into how are we impacting the economy. So I was very interested in, because we're at the border state, Michigan. We were goods coming in from Canada and going out of Canada, then goods coming into Mexico and going up through the Midwest and again back over to Canada. So I became very interested living in Michigan and sitting in the middle of this. What are we doing as a federal government to help people make the decisions about their road and about their infrastructure that impact logistics movements and border crossings? So I went back to school at Michigan State, and I actually did not pay for it. Like I said, all of these things intersect. We have an academic program at the Federal Highway at the USDOT that will pay for you to do graduate studies as well as PhD studies. So I applied for graduate studies in the area of freight and logistics, because not only did it serve the need in terms of me getting an education, it actually served the need of the current job I was working in. So again, writing is important. The earlier panel said it. I wrote a paper, like a letter or memo that talked about the importance of not only that we need to help the private industry and the state government with the logistics issues, but we needed to make sure that our people in the USDOT were just as educated as the folks we were meeting with. At that time, we were meeting with the GMs, the Fords, all the car companies that were sitting on the border. And I was going into boardrooms as a civil engineer and was talking about the importance of the infrastructure. But a lot of private industry really wasn't, they were listening because they wanted the money to help, but they weren't listening because one of the things I found out very quickly is private industry knew my business as civil engineer better than I knew their business as logistics folks. So I made the argument that if we wanted to play in the logistics industry as a DOT, we needed to know their business just as well as they knew our business in transportation. So the first year I actually got turned down. They said, no, you have 3 degrees, we're not paying for you to get a degree. But the thing you also have to learn in your education is be persistent. I said, I'm not paying for it because I'm doing this every day. I'm working really hard. You know, this is my job. This is what I do. And plus, at that time, I was also just married and wanted to become a mother and all these wonderful things. So a year later, my DA, which is our division administrator, came back to me and said, do you still want to go to school? I was like, sure. This time I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant with my second kid. He's like, do you want to go to school? Sure, going to school. So I actually enrolled and got accepted to Michigan State's executive business program in logistics. And I went to school, and you have the option at our agency to take off for a whole year and go straight to school and do nothing else, or work part-time on your master's, go full-time on your master's and work part-time at work. I stayed at work because my research was actually on the subject that I was working on at work. And I was doing a paper on the northern crossing at Canada in terms of truck traffic going across the border and impact. At that time, we were working on designs to do a new bridge crossing across the bridge. And then the thing that also came along during that same time was 9/11. You're talking about other things, paths crossing. It became very significant for the national security on how do we build a new crossing if one crossing happens to go down? Because the Ambassador Bridge is a private crossing, and everyone became concerned about the GDP, the gross national product. How do we protect it? And how do we substantially build a new public crossing? So again, you're talking about, does everything connect? Yes, everything connects. So I went to school, federal government, and continue to do research to add to the services that we have to offer our state and local governments. So what do I do today? What have I been doing over the last 20 some odd years? Again, I say take every opportunity. Do not limit yourself because you happen to major in one subject. And what does that mean? You're going to be offered many opportunities throughout your career in graduate school to do your PhD and work, and take advantage of those opportunities. So I actually was asked to come into headquarters from Michigan to Washington, D.C. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll think about it. And so I actually wasn't on a civil engineering job. The first job I was asked to come in for was in our corporate professional development area. And actually I belonged to a PIT team, which was our process improvement teams. That's where we actually looked at ourselves to look at what processes we can improve. So instead of having someone else come in and audit us and tell us we're not doing something so great, we wanted to take a look at ourselves and say, where can we increase the service that we give to our states and local governments when it comes to building roads? And again, where does your research come in handy? What was my job? To write all day, to go out and interview different offices across the United States, interview our federal offices in that state, our state offices, our local governments, to figure out how the process work at each level. Are people happy? Can we do things better? So again, the other panel talked about writing. Writing never leaves you. Research never leaves you. What did I have to do before I even went out and conducted the interviews? I had to research. Also, what did I have to do is there was a team of us. So graduate school really helps you to learn how to do team-based projects. And for the rest of your life, you're going to be working in a team. So that is another skill set that is invaluable that you'll get from grad school. Then of course, I worked in safety for a while. And then I worked, I took on one of my first management level positions as I rotated into performance management. And that's when the government first went into, we want to measure everything that we do. Again, like I said, I love new areas, cutting edge. I always want to figure out something that hasn't been done. So of course I volunteered to go in and help to start to figure out how to build our performance management program as Congress had laid it out. So I did that for a while. And then I always believe in much has been given, much is expected. So the federal government paid for me to get a degree in freight years ago. So there was an opportunity to come back into the Office of Freight. But at that time, I was also looking to go into the Office of Research. Hence, graduate study. So I applied for a job in both in research and in freight. I got both jobs. I went to work for freight. One is because I love it, but I loved research as well. But also, again, much has been given, much is expected. So throughout your career, I would always say, look for where you can also give back. It's important to get as much as you can in terms of your learning experience and your growth experiences, but it's also important to give back. So I actually went to the Office of Freight as an employee, as a staff member. And now I do the team leader thing. I say that is because I love being a specialist. It's the best job I ever had, where you can do a lot of things and be responsible for basically no one. But I did take on a team leader position where I have a staff of about 7 or 8 folks that work in a large amount of areas, but I enjoy mentoring and I enjoy managing, but I also enjoy the programs I work in. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that now. I'm going to go through the next slides pretty quickly because I want to make sure you have an opportunity to ask questions. But I want to show you the next slides because I want to show you the diversity of what you can do with your degree. So I'm not going to dive into every bullet on the slide, but I want you to see how everything you're learning will play into your future. So one of the projects I wanted to talk to you about is I work a lot in urban freight. That is one area that only became I guess, really one of our key cornerstones because I was thrown a research project on my desk that had been sitting around for 2 years. There was $40,000 to do a research project and no one had the time to really work on it. And I was a new kid on the block. Somebody walked past my desk and said, you know what, you like new things. See what you may be able to do with this. What did I do with it? I actually created a program, which I really enjoy, Urban Freight Initiative. So just a little bit about the 3 programs supports all of the programs we do in the Office of Freight. One is I manage under my purview, and I used to actually manage the National Highway Freight Program. That funds all of our freight infrastructure across the US. Not that any other money doesn't go into that program, because it does, but that is a set aside by Congress to focus on construction projects that actually facilitate the movement of freight goods and services for the United States. So manage that program, used to manage it, now it's under my purview. The infra program, that is competitive grant program. So every state, local government, tribal government, some other organizations can compete every year for infra dollars for a large size infrastructure freight related projects. And so that is under my purview as well. And I actually used to work on that and now I oversight that as well. And then the build, oops, sorry guys. The BUILD program, which is another competitive program, which people apply for. Again, it requires writing to compete for that program. And that actually supplements all different types of construction programs and planning grants as well for every state, local government, and tribal organization. And then the block grants, that's a program that we kind of partner with that brings in other monies to supplement, to do projects on their own, or they supplement these other programs. That is under the Office of Planning's purview. And we have many more funding programs across the US. Freight trends. If you decide to use your civil engineering degree in transportation or even in freight, this is just a flow map and tells you how congested our streets are today. And I show this map to show you can work anywhere in the United States and there are going to be a freight issue. There are going to be goods and services flowing across your highways. Where you see the darker border lines are where we have more freight flowing, and that's also more economics flowing. So show this map to show that your civil engineering degree, and this is just from the federal point of view. If you look at each state at the state level, it's even more vast than this, and it's all about economics and movement of goods and people to work. Again, this is just another map, just shows you where the congestion is. Congestion is another problem that civil engineers deal with every day and help solve. All the little really purple slots you show where we have heavy bottlenecks of congestion in metropolitan areas. If you are from one of the metropolitan areas, you look at Texas, Florida, any of the East Coast states, Michigan, Chicago, anywhere in California, the edge of the West Coast. These are problems that we're trying to solve, is how do we release the bottlenecks and congestion. Those are problems that you will work on. What do you need for that? Data and research and innovations, which you all will come with up in the future. So again, I wanted to show, because graduate school is important, because one of the things you're going to have to do for the rest of your career is analyze data. What does it look like? What does it tell you? Where it comes from? What is the methodology of it? How do I explain it? And that is training that you receive in graduate school. You can get it on the job as well, but graduate school sets a great foundation of how do you tell a story using data. So these are just a couple of our data sources and stories we were telling you. And Dr. Perkins will make this presentation available so that you can look at it more in depth. Just wanted to, I'm not going to go into this, but the federal government works to make data available to the state and local governments along with their own data. So why is it important to do good research and bring in good data? Because other people are relying on you doing your job well. So this is just a shot from the city of Seattle. They're trying to solve some of their freight logistics problems using some of the federal government data resources as well as their own. This is another shot here of Phoenix. Again, they've taken data and done something totally different than Phoenix. So again, like I said, your career can take you a number of different places. A strategy, another one of our jobs as civil engineers are to think about strategies that can help our partners. And strategies are important because it's not just new things, it's about how to reuse things that are already been used. On this urban freight project that I'm working on constantly, we're looking at how to reduce emissions, environmental impact, as well as come up with ways to get goods to your door as quick as possible, via by road, by sidewalk, by walking, by bike. Why is this important? We all just are barely coming out of COVID. We're not there yet. But what did COVID do? COVID enhanced the just-in-time delivery. Everything we can think of ordering, whether it was food, whether it was clothing, whether it was school books, whether it was computers, we wanted it at our front door and we wanted it yesterday. So one of the growing problems is in transportation, how do we continue to get products to people's front door? Is that going to go away when COVID goes away? No, because now people realize how nice it is to do something else with my time, right? So it's gonna stay there. Your generation are gonna have to think of ways of how to solve the movement of goods. Again, this is just an example of some other pilot projects we work with. So not only do we work with government, we work with private industries like FedEx and UPS and the other delivery companies as well. Take a look at this later. Not only do we work with the United States, but we work international. One of our partners in London, we are working with them on freight delivery because it's not just a US problem. Freight moves all over the world, back and forth. So we work with our international partners. What do we have to do? When we run out of space on the streets, I'm not sure how many of you all been to New York, the heart of New York, but it is such thing that you can run out of space on the street. I mean, there is capacity. There's only so much bandwidth on the street and then you tap out. Go to New York sometimes, you will see what tapped out looks like. So we are working on innovative solutions of how to get product to market when there's no more space in the network. So we work on projects like off-hours delivery. Instead of delivering in the daytime, how about delivering at night when people are asleep? So transportation, civil engineers work on those type of problems as well. What if you can't get to the place at night because it's locked? You can't get to the person because they're working or they're somewhere else. We work on solutions like now putting freight in lockers, right? There are government-owned lockers, city government-owned lockers, as well as private industry-owned lockers. So again, we're working on innovative solutions. This is just curbside delivery. There's only so much space on the curb. So you work on problems like how to manage a curb, how to help local governments and states manage their curbside. Truck parking. Again, all of you all have been on road trips. You see their trucks lined up on the highway, on the ramps. We deal with problems of how to create more parking. That is one of our biggest issues we're working on nowadays. And why? Because it is a safety issue. Not only do we have people die because they may hit a truck on the side of the road, we also have truck drivers die because they don't have safe places to park. So that is another issue that you're working on as a civil engineer. And then again, writing, speaking, communication is major because no matter what you build, what you innovate, what you design, you have to be able to communicate that to someone else. So we do a lot of collaboration with states, local governments, private industries, organizations such as your own. And these are just some more slides that you can go over at your leisure. It talks about the different collaborations that we do. And then, of course, professional organizations. Again, academia is important because being in academia, if you give yourself 1 or 2 more years in a master's, you would integrate with a lot of these industries and public and private governments and companies. While you're in academia, you'll start to build your network and relationships. Because we still today, as a federal government worker, I work with academia every day. I work with private sector, and I work with interest groups as well, not only just government organizations. Sorry. And then I wanted to bring it to universities such as your own, such as this program. We work in consortiums every day. So again, graduate school will give you an opportunity to learn about some of the relationships that we have with universities. Universities actually do research for the federal government and private industries to actually get corporations functionals and their processes working, as well as governments to get our processes working. So you can actually learn about working in your industry while you're in school by doing research with one of the university consortiums like the one you're with today. This is just one, and I work a lot with Washington State because they do a lot of urban freight and logistics research. So we work a lot with AASHTO, which is the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials. If you don't know any other organization as a civil engineering, please know this one if you're into transportation. So if you haven't looked it up already, please go do some research, learn about AASHTO, learn what they do, attend their conferences, get to know them well because you'll be working with them pretty much throughout your career. Hopefully all of you are familiar with the Transportation Research Board. We work very closely with them. We're one of their major partners. We do a lot of research with them as well. And this is the fun part. Even though this is project, even though this is work, some topics that you will explore in your job will take you all over the world, will help you to meet people all over the world in different countries. This is just one project that I work on. I'm the liaison with the United States European Twinning Project. We work on urban freight projects together. This is just some of the countries that I work with on this project. And we're always expanding. Here they're listed. And so we all work on the same issue, how to solve urban freight issues. We've done a bunch of peer exchange and other activities and conferences and research studies. We publish something every year. Again, the research skills never leave you. We publish a compendium every year to talk about the new projects, research, academic research that the universities and companies are doing. And then questions. And I'm sorry, I wanted to leave 20 minutes. I'm 3 minutes over, so I apologize. So I am going to stop sharing at this point so that I can actually see people. So do I just hit the share button?
You can hit stop sharing.
Great.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we have 2 questions in the queue. Miss Kiana?
My name is Kiana Dagwa. I am a third.
Can you speak? Can you turn your mic up just a little? I'm going to turn my.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. I'm so excited. Okay. I'm Kiana. I'm a third-year civil engineering major from Tennessee State University, and I am so happy to be speaking to an African-American female presenter right now. Okay. So everything that you said was just so good. I loved everything that you shared with us, how we can do so many things with the degrees that we have. And, you know, something that really stood out to me is the fact that you are married with kids and still have all these degrees and all these responsibilities. And I just really want to know personally, how did you handle that? And how did you get married in the midst of all these degrees? And I'm like, if you're not comfortable asking in front of like all.
No, I'm glad you asked. That's actually the question I was hoping would come from the presentation. That's why I set it up that way. I tell my kids that I have 2 boys, and I tell my kids this now. I think you can get almost everything you want, but you can't do it all at the same time. So you can't have everything you want now and today. It just doesn't work that day. You do have to pick and choose. So everything can be important at the same time. One of the reasons why I did not do my PhD, and I may do it later, is because I made a choice to get married and have a family. And if you make that choice, then you have to have time to invest in that family. My family is just as important to me as my career. And the thing about families, unlike careers, it's a one-shot deal. There are no do-overs. So you do have to make choices. So a couple of things is, I made sure I didn't get married till after I finished my master's. I made a conscious decision that I was going to focus on school. So I dated, I went out to gatherings, parties, just let me say the word party. So I went out to a party every now and then, but I had structure, I had organization. So when everybody else said, I'm going to party all night and then I'm going to sleep all day, I'm going to party until this time. I'm going to go home and take a nap, and I'm going to get up and go to the library, and I'm going to study for 15 hours. If it takes that long, I'm going to get it, and then I'm going to go to class. So you have to make choices, but you can't have everything. You have to be willing to tell people, I can't do this today, or I can do this tomorrow, or whenever. You have to keep a schedule. You have to be organized. Being organized is fundamental. So if you finish grad school before you get married, and that may not be the choice for everyone, but it allowed me the time to really just focus on working and getting my degree. I didn't have to worry about trying to raise a family, you know, the bills. You don't have that many bills when you're in school. If you're single, you're not married, you have no children, you don't really have a lot of bills, only the bills you create, right? So I didn't worry about the expensive car. I had a car, but I didn't have to have the best one, the luxury model, right? So you have to make choices. The other thing is when I did have kids, I made a deal of, you know, I was very honest with my employer that, you know, I really didn't want to travel for 5 days long. I made agreements to skip the donuts and the introductions, get in there when I had to do travel right before the speech, enough time to be responsible, skip the whole networking in the afternoon, to get home to cook dinner. So you have to make choices, but I was also available if anybody wanted to call me, email, find out more about the presentation, did a little bit of networking, not too much. So I had to make choices along the way. You know, when I was working on my second master's, I had, you know, a kid then, and I had one on the way because I was pregnant when I worked on my second master's. You have to make sure that when you date responsibly, right? So I had to marry somebody who was willing to help, who had a vested interest in my career, just like I had in their career. You had to have a partner. So be careful who you choose, right? And even when I started working after I finished my master's, I always took jobs that accommodated what type of life that I wanted. So there may have been a job that was great to promote into, and maybe I would have made an extra 10 or 20,000 bucks. But my barometer was, can I pay my mortgage? Can I save for my kids' education? And can I have a little fun? My barometer was, I didn't have to have the biggest house, the biggest car, the biggest this or the other. So figure out what your priorities are and work your life towards those priorities. That helps, okay? The other thing is Tennessee State, my teenager who is 17 is actually looking at there now to go to mechanical engineering school. So actually I may be down there this summer. I don't know what year you are, but I may actually be down there visiting. But the biggest thing is set priorities for yourselves and goals. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Your professors are there to help you. They've been there, they've done that. Get advice, study when you're supposed to. I worked because working helped me find balance. When you work sometimes, you have to have a schedule. I noticed one time at undergraduate, I actually stopped working because I didn't need the money. I was on scholarship. I stopped working, my GPA started to drop. I went back to working until I graduated. Not because I had to work at that time, because I had saved enough. It was because it gave me structure. So figure out what type of parameters give you structures to be successful, and write it down. Don't have it just in your head. Actually put it on paper. So next question.
Chika?
Hi, good afternoon. I say you were preaching to the choir. You're speaking to the inner me at this point. But I am a double major in civil engineering and mathematics as well. Yeah. And when I do want to go into, transportation, that is one of my fields that I'm really interested in. So I kind of wanted to know, how do you combine, mathematics and transportation? Because those are like my two favorite things. So yeah.
Well, It's wide open. Math, any type of engineering, math is a constant. I mean, you're designing, whether you're doing transportation and math is very integrated because there's a lot of data involved, right? So if you like the design side, there's a lot of numbers because you need numbers to build anything, right? You need the measurement, the width of the pavement, the depth of the pavement, all of those things. Even how much the water drains off the road is nothing but math, whether you can develop a new grade that hasn't been yet used because the water may drain better, you can do that. Or either if you want to get into how transportation is affecting the economy, right? I with freight, but there's a lot of other ways which transportation affect the economy. When you look at the tolls on roads, a lot of places, urban areas now are looking at toll roads, right? Where there's a charge to toll road, but that charge has different economic impacts on every different communities, right? If you're from an affluent communities, the tolls may not mean much. You just buy your toll pass, you put it in the window, you drive, and you just put money in there every month, and you probably don't even know how much it's costing you. But if somebody puts a toll road up against a community that is economically depressed, or even middle class sometimes, lower middle class, that the economic stress of that toll road being there can have profound effects on people's access to education, their access to jobs, their access to food, you know, all types of things. So all of that, using math to determine, math is going to be needed to determine all of those data points, right? What is the level of impact to those communities? So I guess you need to take look at whatever your passion is. What else do you have a passion for? You like math and you like engineering, but socially, what is your passion? I mean, when it comes to people, when it comes to society, you know, what is your passion? I know that's a hard question to put you on the spot.
I definitely, I'm definitely passionate about helping the community. Like I'm very involved on my campus, NSBE, SGA, all of that. So I know for me, mentoring is something that I want to do. Like I said, I want to start a company down the line, and it's a company that's gonna fund kids to go to school because I just know how important education is. So that is definitely, you know.
So maybe look at something, one of the areas that we've tried to invest in, we're going to be investing more in. President Biden has made a commitment to invest in education in terms of transportation, how to build curriculums in mathematics that center around getting kids to learn different types of engineering, civil engineering in their math curriculum. One of the things that I have a passion like you is on kids is having real world experiences about real professions in the math books. So a lot of times we see the distance problems in terms of go from here to there, how much time, how much speed, which are necessary. But there could also be problems. You could look at how do you design problems in the math books to actually build a road, design a road, look at freight distributions, look at how Dr. Perkins knows about all this modal split, how you choose on different transportations, go on which different roads, how they go throughout a community, how they affect a community. But think about your passion for society. I was born into middle class, then I became low income. My relatives became low income, and then we are again middle class. So I have a big passion against how transportation and economics affect lower middle class areas, because when you're building something, you don't always think about that. So I have a passion for that. So a lot of my research and things I do really will integrate with, you know, how's that affecting economically depressed areas. Even when I think of freight, I think of it that way. So I would encourage you, as you look at your passion for math and engineering, look how it impacts your social passions as well, because that may help you figure out what you want to work in, you know, what you want to write about, what you want to research. And my number's on the PowerPoint, so we can talk about this in more detail.
I was just about to say that, so thank you so much.
No problem. But yeah, asking yourself a few questions, but write your questions down. It helps for me to doodle, to think about things. So yes, any other questions?
Any other questions?
Am I standing between folks at lunch by any chance, or they already had lunch?
That they were actually engaging in lunch and you were presenting your material.
Does anybody, how many people, you can just do a show of hands for those who are on camera. How many know they want to go to graduate school? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The climate we're in today, I'm gonna take a couple of minutes and talk about the state of where we are today. Our agency in particular, we're dove in a lot with our agency and kind of social consciousness, right? We're dealing with the racial equality, racial equity a lot. Even as a federal highway, we have several teams. We have a diversity champion at each office. We have an office in every state in the United States, and we have a diversity champion in every office. And then I belong to the Diversity Council for Federal Highway. When you think about school, I really want you to think about going in and meeting the professors, meeting the staff, whether it's by Zoom or whether it's in person. I had a very diverse group of people who invested in me, and I think that's important. Don't let what's happening in society affect your ability to make good decisions about your education and where you go to school. Because every person is different, right? My first research paper, it was a Caucasian lady by the name of Dr. Lee, loved her to death, even ended up babysitting her kids. Not only did we become mentor and mentee, we also became friends. And she probably was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because she got me interested in research, right? She noticed that I had this gift for math, and we were able to build on that. So she was one of my first professors. Then came Dr. Perkins, totally different. She's not long hair, blonde, tall, different. Dr. Perkins, short, African-American, female engineer. First was a mathematician. And then she took an interest, and this girl's willing to work, and she will work you. All of y'all that know Dr. Perkins will work you to death. So she is a worker, she has the potential to work hard. So I'm gonna take her under my wing, and I'm gonna work with her. I'm gonna help her explore her interests, right? So, but then I go to work, and there was actually a guy, an old Caucasian guy, high-speed rail. When we go on trips, he used to pack his shirts and his pants and his deodorant right in his briefcase. I got my luggage tag along. And he was like, oh, she likes high-speed rail. This is my thing. Okay, let's put her to work. And then also a Caucasian guy by the name of Terry Palmer. First job, he took an interest. He was like, oh man, she actually has some computer skills too. We could use those, she can help out the locals. What I'm trying to say is mentors come in all different shapes, sizes, colors, backgrounds. Do not limit yourself because what's going on in society. With every generation, there's something going on. Back in my generation, we were protesting everywhere. We had sit-ins in our school because of tuition. We were protesting our society. I protested the Washington Post about equal reporting. I was on the radio protesting about it, worked on the Kennedy-Waxman bill and protested healthcare. You need to be socially conscious because it's important, but do not let it limit your ability to take advantage of opportunities. We always tell our mentors, one of my mentors, Kevin, who spoke to this group a couple of years ago. Remember, he comes in, African-American young male, graduated from North Carolina A&T, HBCU. He wanted to stay in DC under his rotational program or stay in an urban city, didn't want to go anywhere. There was a great opportunity waiting for him in Lincoln, Nebraska. Now, African-American boy, he's like, I am not going to Lincoln, Nebraska. It's like, this is not happening. We're like, you're going to Lincoln, Nebraska. All of us diverse mentors got together and said, guys, we got to talk to this young man, because the best opportunity he's ever going to have is sitting in Lincoln, Nebraska. You know why? Because if he can make it in Lincoln, Nebraska, if he can take his knowledge and help other engineers and practitioners in Lincoln, Nebraska, he can do it anywhere. He's from an urban city in Greensboro, North Carolina. So graduate school, your first job, that is the opportunity to see the heights that your education will take you. And you're never going to see that if you just stay in your comfort zone. So you have to branch out. I'm from DC. I ended up in Lansing, Michigan. I didn't even know where Lansing, Michigan was on the map. I got on the plane to go from Baton Rouge to Michigan for the job interview, and people were like, you're going here. I was like, what does that even mean? Whole way on the plane, oh, you're going here. It took me until I came back and went back to Michigan to figure out Michigan is the shape of your hand. And so when people are born there, when you tell them where you're from or where you're going, they just point to it on the hand. Oh, you're from the UP. You're from the UP up here. Or you're from Michigan, or you're from Saginaw, or wherever. It's all about the hand, right? But if I had never taken that chance, then I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have today. And that's the same thing I have my kids. My kids are the reverse. They grew up in 1% areas. That means African diverse group was like 1%. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, they grew up that way because that's where me and my husband's jobs happened to sit. But they only wanted to apply to one type of school because that's where all their friends go in Virginia, right? And I was like, no. So we set a requirement in our house. We set a requirement that you had to apply to at least one HBCU because you're from a diverse group. You had to apply to at least one school in Virginia because you live here and it's cheaper for the parents. And one private, one public, one big, medium, one large, medium, and small, because we wanted them to have choices. And so my son, my oldest son, who's graduating May 9th from college, he was all about, gotta go to Pitt. Gotta go to Pitt, that's my school, love Pitt, going to Pitt. Applied early, got in, got his notice before the first week of school started, or within the first week of his senior year. Got into Pitt, got money, going to Pitt. We like, wait till the rest of them roll in. Plus we made an agreement, if you get full tuition anywhere, do not apply to a school you don't like, because if you get full tuition, you're going there. Because nothing trumps free. And that's what I want to say to all of you all. Why would you want to go in debt when somebody's offering it to you free? Who does that? No one asks you 20 years from now where you graduated from. They're going to want to know, what are you doing now? What are you contributing to society? How good are you at your craft? Nobody's going to care 20 years from now, right? So why should you go in debt for it? So my son got 2 full rides. He got one from good old Virginia where he didn't want to stay at home. So VCU, didn't want to stay at home. And then he got one from North Carolina A&T. We made an agreement, don't apply anywhere you want to go, because if you get a full ride, we expect for you to go, or we expect you to pay the difference. So when you become a parent, set the standard, right? So he thought about it. He was willing to work to go to Pitt. He ended up deciding to go to North Carolina A&T. Why? It's because he ended up wanting to get a different experience. He's always been in an area that was predominantly Caucasian and international. So he had never been in school with a lot of diversity. So he went to A&T on a full ride. He has no debt. He's graduating. Had the time of his life academically. Had the time of his life. Learned, had internships every year, from California to Johns Hopkins to MedTech, all these other places that I don't even know about because that's not my field. He's biomed engineering. But now his next experience, of course, he's looking at, a Columbia, I think is his first choice, a Columbia, looking at a Georgia Tech, Dr. Perkins' alma mater, other places. But then he even surprised us more. He decided he knows what he wants to go into, but he doesn't know what he wants to really specialize in. So he's going to work. He's going to work in Boston, a little town in Boston where he knows no one, but it's okay. What I'm saying is, do not be afraid to live because of what's going on in society. Find ways to contribute to that, find ways to break down barriers, find ways to propel someone else while you're on your way, but do not let that be a road to not taking opportunity. So whether it's Lincoln, Nebraska, or whether it's Idaho University, or whether it's Penn, or whether it's Georgetown, or whatever it is, if you get a great opportunity, take it for what it is, meet the professors, make your judgment based on meeting the professors and visiting the school and seeing if that surrounding fits you. So, that's my parent moment for today. I am a parent of a college student, so I'm compelled to give some parenting tips. But if I see all of you all again, what I want to hear is that you took advantage of an opportunity that was gifted to you. And it is a gift. When someone offers you a mentor opportunity, a fellowship opportunity, that is a free opportunity that you are taking from someone else. So you need to give it 110%. You need to study hard. You need to ask for help when you need it. You need to succeed, because the problem with not succeeding, not to put pressure on you, is that when you don't succeed on a free opportunity, you limit the opportunity for the next person coming behind you. And what I mean by that is, even though I worked for the Department of Transportation, I took the Dwight Eisenhower, that was the first time Southern University was gifted the opportunity to be in the Dwight Eisenhower program. If me and the other two people who were gifted that opportunity had failed and not taken it seriously, that would have limited the opportunity possibilities for the people that had come behind us. And that would have been unfortunate, because that means 3 or 4 people coming behind us may have not had the opportunity to even afford college because they needed that money. So take your education really seriously. Take the time to plan, to study, to ask for help. One is it's going to prepare you for it, but it's also going to make that opportunity available for the person coming behind you. So, and that's my spiel for the day.
All right, Kiana, you may want, if it's a real short question, we'll capture you, and then we'll get ready for the next speaker. Go ahead.
Very short. Is there any way that you could drop your number one more time? Because I didn't catch it at the end of your group, your presentation.
Okay, let me find the chat.
Okay. So while she is doing that for Kiana, let's show Miss Burnell how much we've appreciated her presentation, as well as the wisdom that she's passed on to you guys, and the enthusiasm that she's put forth in regards to sharing her journey. All right. Tamika, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
One little note, Tamika was my very first graduate student. So it worked out very well. Okay, here again, thanks again. And we will be in touch, and we'll certainly make sure that your presentation is made available for all of the scholars.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Okay, all right, take care.
Call me rather than email. I average about 150 email a day. I do not want it to get lost. So definitely email, but also call.
Yes, ma'am. Did you drop it already? I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's in the chat pod, I think. Oh, wait a minute. I might have just put it on Dr. Perkins' chat. Let me see if I can get to the full chat.
Okay. I can take care of it for you, Tamika.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
And we will be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a nice day.
Okay. Good deal.